What is up everyone, Hero276 here, and welcome to today's video and welcome back to my channel. Today we'll be featuring the new INCINEROAR with Community Day moves in the Great League. INCINEROAR is a Dark and Fire type Pokemon with the moveset of Snarl, Blast Burn, and Darkest Lariat. For the team I'll be running Venusaur on the lead and my Sableye as the safe switch, creating sort of this ABB style Poison Double Dark team. As you know, I love ABB style teams, and that's exactly what we're featuring in today's video. Now, it did take me a minute to get my INCINEROAR, and now that I finally have one, I wanted to show it off a little bit, so here we go. You'll be seeing 8 battles, no particular cohesive set, it's just going to be a barrage of battles, so I hope you guys enjoy this one. But before we dive into it, I'm just going to give a special shout out to my Spotify page. If you're enjoying the music used in this video and other videos, please be sure to check out my Spotify. You'll have access to all of my music. You can just follow the page for free, or if you want to support the channel even more, you can buy my albums for $4.99 each. But that being said, let's jump right into it. And we are starting today's video off with a positive lead Venusaur into Annihilate. My opponent is going to stay in this matchup. Perhaps they're weak to Venusaur somewhere in the back, but I'm going to go straight for the Frenzy Plant here, and Frenzy Plant is going to do some very solid damage onto the Annihilate. Opponent does end up throwing their energy. This can be the Ice Punch. I will let it through. It is the Ice Punch, but it's not enough to KO, and we preserve alignment and still have both shields intact. My opponent sends in Superior. I bank the Sludge Bomb for later and safe switch into the Sableye. Opponent is going to throw their energy, and from here I can survive a Frenzy Plant, but it is the Leaf Tornado and we do not see the attack fall. Gonna go for the foul play. Opponent will shield it up as Leaf Tornado does have that attack debuff chance. They're gonna go for another one here, and this time they do get the debuff. My opponent decides to throw their energy again. This time it will knock out the Sableye. I'm not going to invest any shields. Leaf Tornado picks up the knockout, and from here I'm going to wait my timer, and eventually I'm going to send in the INCINEROAR. INCINEROAR farming up a ton of energy. They do catch my Blast Burn, but it's onto a Galarian Stunfisk. This is going to do some massive damage. I send in the Venusaur, we win the CMP tie. Frenzy Plant here is going to take them out, and from here all that's left in the back is the Superior, and really either play makes sense. I elect to let it go through as I want to win the game with INCINEROAR, but I also could have shielded up since I had the Sludge Bomb, so I'm going to shield up here. This can be any charge move. It is the Aerial Ace. Now we both still have a shield in play. My opponent will be going for the Aerial Ace again, but all I need to do is make it to double Blast Burn and I should win this game. Blast Burn number 1 here is going to grab the final shield from my opponent, and in comes Blast Burn number 2. This will absolutely flame char the Superior, and we take the win. Picking up a very nice lead in game number 2, leading Venusaur into Shadow Alligator. Very positive for us. Opponent safe switches out into Cresselia, and I decide to bring in Sableye. Now my opponent only farms up 6 Psycho Cuts here, so this is not the Moonblast. This is a Grass Knot Cresselia, which leads me to believe that their secondary charge move is Future Sight, which Sableye double resists. I go for the foul play, and from here I can actually survive another Grass Knot. So what I'm going to look to do is survive the Grass Knot, leave with very minimal HP, and a move banked for the Feraligatr that's presumably going to farm down. In comes the Feraligatr, and from here I'm actually going to go for the return. Now the big reason for this is because they know I have a Venusaur, so they're less likely to shield, and the return lands, does huge damage, and I Vine Whip down. In the back there's a Skeledirge, and this game is basically over. In the even shield situations, INCINEROAR actually wins this one quite decisively just by going straight Blast Burn, but here I decide to go for the Darkest Lariat. My opponent obviously will shield that one up, and as you can see, this is not as comfortable of a matchup as you would like it to be. I double shield, and from here, now I'm going to start to use my noggin and go for the Blast Burn. Blast Burn is resisted, but from this range, it should still KO. I mean, it's an INCINEROAR after all. And I make it to the third move. This Blast Burn here will KO, and we take the win. Hopping into game number 3, leading Venusaur into the mirror match. Now what I'm going to try to do in this mirror match is look to catch the Sludge Bomb onto Sableye. So you'll see me make the Sludge Bomb at the same time they do. I try for the catch, but I am unsuccessful. And from here, they're going to go for Frenzy Plant. I invest 1 shield. The opponent's going to make another Frenzy Plant, and this is just a truly terrible situation. Sableye lets the Frenzy Plant go through, and that does so much damage. Gonna go for the foul play. Opponent actually gives me a shield back, so you know what? I'm actually okay with this. Their Venusaur is chipped from Shadow Claw damage, and my Venusaur still has a lot of energy stored on it. So from here, I'm gonna go for the Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb, gonna be doing some solid damage, taking out the opposing Venusaur, and they send in Bastiodon, and I'm very glad that they did this, because the Smackdowns would do such huge damage to the Incineroar. But now I'm going to stay in here and look to get this Bastiodon as low as possible. Bastiodon does make it to the Stone Edge. I will respect it with the shield. And from here, I have so much energy. So if they shield up this next Frenzy Plant, I should be able to make it to a second one. Opponent commits the shield, but I'm able to get off the second Frenzy Plant. And from this health range, this should knock out the Bastiodon. What's in back? It's a Azumarill. And this looks pretty dire because my Venusaur is low, and Azumarill is going to leave with a lot of energy, but Frenzy Plant just does so much damage. So they don't farm me down. I will immediately send in the Incineroar, play rough coming through, and that's actually not enough to knock out there, as it's only neutral. And I'm going to be able to make this game-winning Blast Burn, and this will take out the Azumarill, of course, after my opponent force closes their app, and we take the win. Hopping into the next one, picking up a lead, Venusaur into Shadow Dragonair. Shadow Dragonair is quite uncomfortable for the whole team. How I like to play this out is farm up to the Frenzy Plant, switch and catch the Body Slam, where it's double resisted onto Sableye. So a good catch by me. I'm going to look to farm up to the foul play, go for it as soon as I get there, but the Dragonair wins CMP. So what I'm going to look to do is shield here. As Aqua Tail would come very close to KOing, I'm going to go straight for the foul play. My opponent will likely be shielding back, as they're going to want to preserve alignment, but if my opponent tries to farm down, which it looks like they're going to do, I'm able to make it to one last second foul play and force the second shield from my opponent. From here, what I'm going to look to do is wait my timer and send in the Venusaur, and Venusaur here can take energy from the Dragonair as opposed to the Incineroar, which is much glassier. Opponent was expecting the catch once again, so they end up going for the resisted Aqua Tail, and that's even better for me. Opponent sends in Skarmory, I switch an Incineroar, and it's Lantern in the back, so this looks like worst case scenario, but let's see what Incineroar can do here. I go for the Darkest Lariat, and that does huge damage onto the Lantern. Lantern does make it to the surf, so I am forced to commit the shield, and if I can make a Blast Burn in time, which I do, winning the CMP tie, this will take out the Lantern. And all that's in the back is the Skarmory, but how close is Skarmory to a charged move? Once again, Incineroar winning CMP. Blast Burn is going to one-shot the Skarmory, and Incineroar pulls off a very unlikely sweep. Heading into the next game, we see a Core Breaker, Venusaur into Gligar. Gligar can hit for super effective damage here with the flying moves onto Venusaur, and Dig hits for super effective damage onto Incineroar. So I switch into the Sableye, attempting to catch the Aerial Ace, but my opponent does not fall for it. They full send the Dig, they then try to catch my Foul Play onto Skarmory, and I'm going to be able to get off at least one Foul Play here. Foul Play will do some nice damage to the Skarmory. I'm not able to get off the second. And from here, Skarmory has a lot of energy, but I have no choice. I have to send in the Incineroar because Venusaur's moves are double resisted. So I'm going to send in the Incineroar, shield up. It is the Sky Attack, which honestly would not have KO'd, but still, it would have done a lot of damage. From here, I'm going to go for the Blast Burn. Skarmory, recognizing there is value, will commit the shield. But Skarmory, perhaps not realizing the pacing of Incineroar, we get to another Blast Burn. Skarmory lets it go through, and down it goes. We'll likely see the Gligar again, as it can hit for super effective damage, and at this point, I'm just going to let it go through. I'm going to either have to put my full trust in Incineroar or Venusaur, and I'm going to put my trust in Venusaur. They showed double flying, so my hope is that there is a non-flyer or possibly an anti-flyer in the back, and it's Lantern. This is very good news for me. They catch my Frenzy Plant, but that does huge damage. So now I'm going to commit to the farm down. Lantern makes it to a charge move. If this is the Thunderbolt, I lose, but it's just the Surf. Not enough to KO, and we have back-to-back Frenzy Plants for the Gligar. They shield up the first, but we have the second. Gligar gonna get KO'd here, and making the correct read won us the game. Moving right along into game number 6, and we see a great lead into Swampert. Opponent is going to bail out of this matchup. They send in a Roserade, and I'm going to send in Incineroar. Opponent has enough energy here for the Leaf Storm, and I will let this go through. And holy Toledo, even resisted, that still does a lot of damage. I accidentally overfarm as well, and my opponent is able to make it to a Weather Ball. This is not great news for me. I do at the very least double up on the Blast Burns, but I would have really liked to have preserved a shield. Blast Burn cooks the Roserade, opponent sends back in the Swampert, and I'm able to get off a Darkest Lariat. This will either do big damage, or in this case, grab the first shield from Swampert. I send back in the Venusaur, I go for the Frenzy Plant, and this will one-shot if Swampert lets it go through, but of course they shield it up, and from here I've got a choice to make. I'm letting it through, calling the bait, it's the Hydro Cannon. And their final Pokemon is Carbink. And from here, the plan is very simple. We get the Carbink low, but in farm down range for the Sableye. Frenzy Plant does a tremendous amount of damage, and Carbink is going to go ahead and throw their energy, but I could just let this go through. Sableye with a shield should be able to Shadow Claw farm down, and we should leave with enough energy here for the Foul Play. Foul Play is going to KO the Shadow Swampert, and we take the win. Hopping into the penultimate match, picking up a lead Venusaur into Kommo-o. Now this is a Pokemon I haven't seen too much of because Hakamo-o recently received a buff to Brick Break, but Kommo-o very interesting here. Gonna go for the Sludge Bomb. Sludge Bomb does some very nice damage onto the Kommo-o. We send in Sableye trying to catch a potential move, but they send in Whiscash, and up energy, Sableye is actually in a decent spot. Foul Play should be able to 3-shot, and these Shadow Claws are actually chunking through the Whiscash's HP. So from here, I'm going to let the move go through. It is the Mud Bomb. That does not KO, and from this health range, they can't farm down either. They have to expend more energy to KO, and I am able to force a shield in the process. And that's really the goal of what Sableye is supposed to do. Get the Foul Plays very quickly, force shields from the opponent, and allow Incineroar to sweep in the back. So we're set up great here. Venusaur comes in, and at this point, they're only able to get off one move. I will let it go through. Mud Bomb, not going to do a terrible amount of damage. Their final Pokemon is Skeledirge, and I send in the Incineroar. I will shield up the first move here. It is the Disarming Voice. It's only neutral, but still, Incineroar is very classy. Back in comes the Kommo-o. I shield up again. It's the Dragon Claw. I overfarm by 1 and win the CMP tie. Blast Burn here is going to knock out. They're going to trust in the Skeledirge to win them the game, but Incineroar has a lot of energy. Gonna go for the Blast Burn. Opponent commits the shield, and from here, this should be the Disarming Voice. Is it enough to KO? It is not. Incineroar is able to make it to a Blast Burn, and after this lands, this should be in Vine Whip farm down range for the Venusaur, and we take the win. We have one more battle for you, leading Venusaur into a Dragonair. Same game plan as before. We're going to farm up to the Frenzy Plant, and once they make it to the Body Slam, switch and catch it onto Sableye, where it's double resisted. Opponent goes for the Body Slam. That does nothing. Opponent switches into a Swampert, and this is the non-Shadow Swampert, so we should be able to comfortably survive a Hydro Cannon, and they won't be able to farm down, but I make a boneheaded play here. I go for the return. Swampert is shielding this no matter what, as a Foul Play would still have KO'd, and they get an even bigger farm down, and they don't need to expend energy because I wouldn't have been able to make it to a Foul Play. So not a great move by me, but at the very least we can come in here with the Venusaur. I will shield up. They full send the Earthquake, and they made the same mistake as me, so I commit fully to the farm down, and it ends up working out in my favor. They have a Fire Spin Shadow Charizard in the back. I go for the Sludge Bomb. That's going to grab the final shield. I bank all this energy for later and send in the Incineroar. Back in comes the Dragonair, but in comes a Darkest Lariat, and this will one-shot the Dragonair, and all that's left in the back is the Shadow Charizard, and from here, all we need to do is make it to a Blast Burn. I shield up, it is the Dragon Claw, and they throw immediately again, so this should only be another Dragon Claw. That's not going to be enough damage to KO, and we get off the Blast Burn. This will scorch and torch the Charizard, and we take the win. All in all, this team was solid but not spectacular. I went on a 10-7 run with it, and I thought that the use of Incineroar would be as a very spicy sweeper as long as it had shields and energy. And while this fact is true, there were times where Incineroar just felt off, and this was due to its rather low levels of tankiness relative to how expensive its charge moves are. There are a lot of things going against Incineroar in the Great League, specifically its negative matchups up against popular meta threats like Whiscash, Feraligatr, and Gallade. And the worst part about it is all of those Pokemon outpace Incineroar, as it takes Incineroar 15 turns to get to the first Darkest Lariat, but Whiscash has 12 to his Scald, and both Hydro Cannon and Close Combat are 10 turns for Feraligatr and Gallade respectively. But not all hope was lost for this Pokemon. I found it very fun to use, especially once we had shields and or an energy head start, and this made it very fun to use, pulling off some nearly impossible sweeps as you saw in this video. So yeah, Incineroar is a lot of fun to use, but it's not something that I would call super meta relevant at the moment. At any rate, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.